Teki, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to another ADRH Fire Chat series. The series we've had over the last month is part of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So it has a focus on cybersecurity issues. Our fireside chats are influenced by traditional African folktale teaching methods that is meant to share stories, teach lessons, and instill values on various topics around digital rights. The fireside chats are meant to be very informal and meant to encourage our various contributors to share their experience and expertise for the benefit of our audience. It's also meant to demystify the topics of discussion to bring it to the level of the everyday man. Today brings down the curtain on our Cybersecurity Awareness Month series. But the fireside chats will continue around the same time on the last Friday of every month. Do well to follow us on our social media pages for more information on upcoming events. For this WIS edition of the Fireside Chats, we will be talking to cybersecurity and data protection practitioners across the continent on aligning cybersecurity with data protection best practices in today's world. We are indeed grateful to all our partners that have made this possible. Today's edition is brought to you in collaboration with Information Security Architects, Digital Law House, and Tech Hive Advisory. Like we like to do here at the fireside, please grab your drinks, no alcohol. I don't know how late it is where you're joining, no alcohol yet, especially for our panelists and even for our audience, because we want you to, to be able to take some notes. So no alcohol yet, but grab a cold drink. I hear it's very hot in Johannesburg, so grab a cold drink, a hot drink, or whatever you fancy, as long as it's not alcohol. And let's join us here. And then now let us invite all our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with the women. I'm very biased about women being one of that kind. So I will start with you, Amanda. Briefly introduce yourself to our audience. You're muted.
2020 and I have not figured how to unmute myself. Hi everyone, thank you so much Teki and the Africa Digital Rights Hub team for having me on today. I am Amanda Manyame. I'm a digital law and policy advisor and the founding member of the Digital Law House, an organization that specializes in providing digital law and policy advisory services. I am a proponent of public interest technology and I advocate for policies and regulations that assist in developing and creating an enabling environment for technological advancements that do not risk human rights. Simple terms, I am pro-tech, but tech that does not harm human rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now to my own grandmother that looks younger than me, I want to invite Najama to introduce herself.
Okay, thank you, Teki. Hi, everyone. My name is Olayinka Najama Wilson Kofi. I know it's mouthful, but you can call me Ola or Na, any goes. And my background is IT with my first degree and master's. And I'm currently a security architect with eProcess International. And what we normally do as an architect is to ensure we come up with security standards. And with these standards, we have security controls embedded in them. And during implementation of applications and systems, we have these controls being implemented, and we also do compliance as well. I'm a certified ISO 27001 lead implementer and auditor, where I worked with Innovari, CK Bruce, that's my mentor, to certify a few fintechs in Ghana. And I'm also a certified ISO 27032 senior cybersecurity manager, and also a certified information security officer. I know I have a lot of ISO stuff, but that's my line of interest. So my area of practice is with is with implementation and auditing of both ISO 27001 information security and also ISO 22301 for business continuity as well. I do a bit of IT audits and then a bit of training and a bit of project management. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll have to dig deeper into all these certificates, but I hope you'll be able to break the certificates down to the level of us, especially me, the ordinary bystander on the streets that don't know much about what you're saying. So yeah, I'm coming to the gentleman now. I'll start with Nuruddin. Do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah. All right, good afternoon, good morning, everywhere you are in the world. My name is Nuruddin Odashino. I don't call myself an expert. I'm a cybersecurity data protection practitioner because I feel like we are all still learning in this field. On a day-to-day basis, I work with one of the leading indigenous oil and gas firms in Nigeria, mainly as cybersecurity and data protection lead. I'm not a DPO. I basically just provide advisory within the organization. My previous background is really as regards, it's mainly consulting. I've worked with one of the big fours, setting up the cybersecurity and data protection practice in one of the big fours before I left there. Previous experience with implementing ISO standards, business continuity, IT governance, COVID, and basically capacity building for organizations. My background is in engineering actually, but then I got tired of engineering, then went into IT. So that's me basically. Thanks.
Thank you, Nuruddin. Ridwan?
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ridwan Oloyede. I lead the privacy and data protection team at Tech Advisory. Tech Advisory is a technology advisory firm which work around the intersection of law, business, and technology. Our key focus areas are privacy, data protection, cybersecurity, startup advisory, and tech policy. Beyond doing day-to-day being a data protection practitioner, I have also a research fellow at the African Academic Network on Internet Policy, where I try to support with tech policy across the continent, essentially. I'm also the co-founder of the African Data Governance Initiative and also Privacy Alliance, which is like a global alliance of different privacy professionals across the world. Then beyond that, I'm a certified information privacy professional in European data protection law, certified information privacy manager, also by the IAPP. And yeah, essentially that's what I do. So I'm really looking forward to having this conversation and hope we can enjoy ourselves.
Thank you for joining us. Hector?
Thank you, Teki. My name is Hector Doche. My butter and bread on a daily basis from Monday to Friday is working as a Secure by Design manager for Vodafone Global Cybersecurity in Germany. So I look at doing assessment on our enterprise product and some of our enterprise products and services that we sell to our customers within most of our European markets. So when you talk about unified comms, SD-WAN, software-defined networks, and all that, I'm a technology person. I like to play around with the technology before I even add the cybersecurity to it. As part of my daily work, I do interface a lot with the privacy, corporate security, legal colleagues, because all of that plays into the concept of security and privacy by design. So we do sort of like interface a lot. When I'm not doing my normal day to day work. I try to volunteer. I'm passionate about child online topics. So even at work, I try to volunteer to take out some time to do assessments on products and services that are dedicated for children. So when you talk about instant networks, I think in South Africa, Lesotho, and then others. So my background is computer science and then computer network security. So I'm a cybersecurity true and true guy. So I don't think there's any way that I can go again. Yeah. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, thank you so much. Last but not the least, Desmond.
Hi, everybody. My name is Desmond Israel. I'm a technical person turned lawyer. I started off as a vulnerability assessor, pen tester later, and drifted into data protection. And then currently I've added the practice of law to it. So like Nuruddin, I actually consider myself as a privacy and information security practitioner, plus lawyer on the side. On the regular day, I'm an associate with the law firm called Insiakwete & Co. And I'm also the founder and lead consultant to Information Security Architects, where I do practice more of my security and privacy technical stuff. Yeah, so that's just about me. We can save the certifications for later.
Thank you. Thank you, Desmond. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Teki Akwete Faulkner. I'm the ordinary bystander for this fireside chat and will be your host for today. So let's dig right in. All right. So guys, this whole data protection and cybersecurity, where do we start? Are there any things that bring these two issues together? On one path, you could say that they are separate things. Why are we trying to bring all these together? And how does this really play, data protection, cybersecurity, how does it play in all of your experiences? And I think that's where I will start from. And this gives you the opportunity to give us your opening remarks around the issue. So I will start this time with the men. I'll start with you, Redwan, and then we will move through. Yeah, I probably will interspace with mix based on how I feel, or whoever. But yeah, please relax and let's have fun,
All right. Thank you for that. So, I mean, the way I like to think about it is as much as we have some sort of synergy between security and data protection, there's also a bit of overlap. But like you said, they're like two distinct concepts. So one way to think about it is to think about a house with a lock, perfect lock this time around, that doesn't have a master key this time around. Let's assume it doesn't have a master key for the very purpose of this example. Then maybe also, and this is one example I got from Nuruddin, maybe also, let's assume that house itself, it's opaque. So if it's opaque, in which it's really not transparent, in that sense, there's an assumption, or let's say there's a presumption that there is some sort of privacy. And with the lock, there's some sort of form of security. But if it doesn't have a lock and it's transparency, then there's no security, no privacy. Then if you further break it down to say it's transparent, but there is a lock. So that's like there's security, but there's no privacy. But knowing fully well also that privacy is a distinct concept to data protection. Security, which is the principle of integrity and confidentiality, is one principle under data protection. And it's just one of the principles. I mean, data protection is it's pretty much a broader concept. Security rests essentially on those three legs of ensuring confidentiality, ensuring integrity and availability. Maybe now we also add resilience into the mix. I mean, with what we've had with COVID, in 2020. So that's what security is about essentially. Then data protection take it a step further to say, okay, security is part of what we are trying to ensure. While we are ensuring security, there are also other things like minimizing the data minimization, purpose limitation, storage limitation, and all of those other things you find under the principles of data protection. So taking it a step further, it's that you can have security without necessarily thinking about data protection. But you can have data protection without thinking about security. So, and this is like maybe one friction people like us have a lot with people in the security domain. And I'm really expecting Nuruddin and Hector to relate or speak more to this, is the fact that, I mean, that's like the, I don't want to use the word loggerhead, but honestly, it could be loggerhead sometimes. Before, for the security folks, especially the ones who probably don't really know, who probably is not paying attention to what data protection obligations are, they are only just keen on secure. But if you're securing too, I mean, there are rights, human rights issues that, I mean, that they are personal data that they're not just the corporate securing infrastructure as it is. So essentially, again, just to reiterate what I've said, the point I've made earlier, you can have security without having privacy or data protection, but you can have data protection without having security. And for me, I mean, I just like to introduce that way, and I'll keep quiet at this point. So back to you, Teki.
Thank you. I think that's an interesting illustration. I'll come back to you later to find out how, we can, really secure and protect. But that's a very interesting analogy. I want to move to you, Amanda. So data protection, cybersecurity, do they have anything in common? Is there the need for us to look at these two together at all?
Yes, like Ridwan said, they have things in common, and there's a need for us to look at them together. But there's also instances where we don't need to look at them together. I think we'll deep dive into that a little later on. But the reason why I say they have things in common, and I'm just going to re-say what Ridwan said, is because when the way I see cybersecurity, and the cyber experts can correct me here, I'm just a legal person, but the way that we see cybersecurity is you are essentially protecting an ICT system or the cyberspace or a computer system. So that is protecting every single thing on that computer system, right? And then when you have data protection, you are protecting the personal data that is on the computer system. So now when you're trying to protect, put in all those cybersecurity measures and policies in place, you also try to make sure that the whole system is protected, but at the same time, that data in that system is protected. So this is where some of the arguments I've been making quite recently come into play, where you will find a lot of African countries now state, well, we want to surveil our citizens because we're trying to protect our cyberspace. Whereas you will find digital rights proponents saying, you cannot do that because we need to make sure that we're protecting the right to privacy or data protection. But this is where now those two, like Ridwan was saying, they do work hand in hand. At the same time, they do need to be separated, or let's use the word respect the two. So protect the cyberspace, but at the same time, ensure that individual rights or the individual's personal information or personal data is protected.
I like that. Protect both. So recognize both and the importance of both. I'm coming to you, Nuruddin. So Amanda is saying that we need to respect both. Where do you stand on that?
I mean, I think that's agreeable to every one of us. I mean, every one of us right here in this room understands the need to actually protect both. In oftentimes, what I typically do, basically to create a distinction between both terminologies, is to go back to the evolution of man, right? Before we became clothes-wearing Homo sapiens, right? Back to the Stone Age.
Were you there?
History, right? You're all students of history.
He's a Darwin product.
Okay.
So back in the Stone Age, right? Prehistoric man basically were only focused on two things, right? Protection of their lives and property, whether they are staying in the cave, and also the privacy, right? Protection from wild animals and all that, but also privacy to some respect, or to their private life. But then as things evolved, they no longer had to worry about protection of lives and property again. They began to create information in an astronomical manner. As a result of that, it wasn't only properties and human lives that require protection. And by protection, I'm talking about from a security point of view. They don't need to shield themselves from wild animals or from enemies. Not only concerned about their properties and lives, they begin to worry about information, which is where cybersecurity now comes into play. Because, I mean, there are all forms of security, whether it's physical security, national security, but there's also cybersecurity. Because most of the information we are talking about today are information that actually exists on the internet, right? And that's typically what's going to happen in the next 10 years, 15 years, as we begin to talk about Internet of Things and also Internet of Behaviors. Data is going to continue to grow astronomically. From this subset of data is where we can now start thinking of personal data, because not all data is personal data. There are also organizational data that does not fall under the realms of data protection regulation, quote by quote. Some of this data is now where we now need to worry about personal data whenever it concerns humans, right? Living humans. And I think that's where the alignment comes. And Ridwan has actually attested to that. Security is by far one of the means to ensure that principles of data protection under the law. And whenever I say data protection, now I'm saying personal data. I'm talking about personal data under the law is actually safeguarded. But then there are also some other means, right? Security is just one of the means to, I mean, by far, they say security is the A-lister, right? It's the most important principle in data protection. But then there are some other principles that if you actually ensure you do them, you don't need to worry about security. For example, if I don't collect data, I don't need to worry about securing the data because there's no data in the first place, right? I mean, I think that's basically what it is as the alignment. Both of them are very, very important, more especially personal data or data protection because it involves human life. I can lose data today from an organizational standpoint, and it's going to affect the organization. Maybe bottom line will be reduced. I won't make profits. But when it comes to personal data, we need to be more extra careful because it could actually lead to an impact on human life, which is actually much more valuable than any organizational data. I mean, I'll just rest it there.
Thank you, Nuruddin. Are you sure? A lot of people don't feel that way. They feel that personal data is a commodity that should reasonably be traded, you know, and what's the big deal? After all, we're all out there and, you know, giving out as much information about ourselves as possible. But let me come to you, Hector. So where do you stand in terms of your work on all this? Do you see yourself leaning more towards cybersecurity, or do you see yourself trying to find some form of synergy in your dealings between requirements of data protection and cybersecurity? You're mute. This is the new normal.
Sorry, thank you, Toki. So I would first admit that I'm a cybersecurity person at heart first, before even the privacy part and then the other parts come in. But then in my day-to-day activities, what I need to do is I need to balance it because all these areas help in the work that I do. So like Nuruddin's mentioned, we have certain things or certain data, like the data that we seek to protect. Those are our crown jewels. So if you're a company and you are in service provision, you may collect customer data. The same company may have data about their business plans, so strategic data. That same company also may have data around their technical systems, so IPs, server names, locations, all those things. those are all types of data that we need to protect, and not only the customer data. So in a nutshell, those are what a company's or crown jewels, and they need to be protected. But then in terms of knowing how to protect it, I could just say, let's encrypt everything from A to Z without doing a privacy impact assessment or without doing a corporate security impact assessment. But then technically, if you are doing encryption across board, there is an issue with that. There is a challenge because encryption takes a lot of resource. So would you be spending and it's expensive. So would you be spending so much money trying to encrypt data that is not even personal in the first place? That is not even, you don't classify it as confidential. Would you want to do that? In order for you to know what sort of security measures, cybersecurity measures to apply in terms of protecting your data, your crown jewels, you need to interface with the privacy team, or even the legal team, or even the corporate security team. Because at that point of carrying out the impact assessment, so let's say at the when you look at the software development cycle, we call it the concept, idea and the concept stage. At that point, if you are doing your impact assessment across board, that point would tell you that, okay, this data that we are collecting, it's not personal data, so there's no need to spend money to carry out encryption or spend money to carry out anonymization. That is not required. If the data is confidential, at that point, you know that you need to add some sort of technical controls that will protect the data from being breached or being out there for anybody to just have a control over. So for me, personally, in my line of work day to day, I cannot do without the privacy team or the corporate security team, or even recently, up until recently, the legal team. And yeah, the colleagues or the guys who write up our contracts. Because even with that, even with the legal team, with the contract, we need to have a schedule in there that has to do with security, the cybersecurity schedule. That tells you what can be done, what cannot be done. That goes hand in hand with a DPA, the data processing agreement. So for me, generally, or in a nutshell, day to day, I do interface with all of them. So even though I'm drawn towards doing cybersecurity every day, I still need the input of the privacy and the corporate security and the legal guys to ascertain what sort of controls I need to advise for the product and services that I look after. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think that really, brings out some of the reasons why it is very important that these two issues should, be looked at together. And now, Desmond, you also work in the cybersecurity space, and you've gradually grown affection for privacy. I don't know how biased you are in one or the other. But where do you stand on all of these issues?
Okay, thank you. So I have actually developed a test for conversations, especially with my clients, because it's a bit difficult to woo them into the privacy side of things. And most of them are coming in just purely because it's regulatory and the regulator is just going to come after them. So I have developed the concept of speaking to the issue of protect to compete. And I look at two things. Now, in the environment where you are operating, whatever you are collecting, whatever attributes that you are collecting, any information that you are collecting, so long as it would make direct identification of a person within that environment, then privacy is a question for you to address. So that's my first test. The second one is to look at the risk that the information you are collecting about the persons pose. So if you are in an environment where card data, so card data, I'm talking about Visa cards, credit cards. So if you're in an environment where card data is being collected, the card data concerns certain individuals. There are attributes on the card which can be matched to identify Desmond specifically. So the requirement of your card industry security implementation is critical, not only because you need it for your cybersecurity, it's also critical because you need it to ensure that the data subject or the person for whom information you are collecting about that card is also safe. And that's where the protect to compete comes in. Because if I am banking with an institution and I'm going to hear the report of breaches on card database out there, it's most likely I'm not going to bank with that institution, because I mean, I don't want my card details out there for someone to use it to trade. And that's the day-to-day basic challenge that you have. You would also notice that it's not only about the corporate space, the individual who owns the card. How well are they versed with appreciating their personal data such that they are worried and they are more informed about where they use the card information? So from a Fireside Chat point of view, you have to look at the individual who uses the card. What do they know about the security of the platforms that they use the card on? So if Hector, for instance, has a product where you can purchase some of his services online, what are the security controls in there? Because so long as you make a resource available online, cybersecurity comes into play, because we are dealing with cyber risk. The potential of getting breached, the potential of that data going out there. And the conversation cannot expand to anything else apart from personal data. Because yes, we agree there is corporate data, there is infrastructure data and all that. But for me, you would only go into that space if there is data there that would identify individuals. So like the card example I'm giving, there's a name on the card, there is a card number, there is a CVC on the card, which allows for verification and authentication with maybe the acquirer or the bank where you are trying to transact. That is critical, not because you want to protect the card. That is critical because there is personal data on that card. And that personal data is routed through your service all the way to third parties who are maybe authorizing payments and making the services available. So the alignment is key. There's no way else to talk about it. The privacy principle speaks about security, but I even want to go beyond that. Your service that you are delivering to users or to data subjects, don't you see the need to protect the information, because you are trading on it? Your business thrives on that data. And for the card example again, you are advertising that your Visa cards are XYZ, people should come for gold cards, they will get tripped here, they will get tripped there. And these cards are going to be used on online platforms, and users have no idea what the risk is when they are using these cards. So if I were to be sitting before and consulting, where I am going to marry privacy to cybersecurity is for me to bring the attention to the business or the individual that what is critical here is your competitive advantage. And that's why I started by saying you need to protect so you can compete, because you would look the world over. What is Apple touting today? Really, not exactly. They are touting privacy more than anything else. So there is that alignment, and it comes from so long as the data that we are collecting would identify a particular individual. So IP addresses, like Hector mentioned, IP addresses really don't mean anything on the face of it. But if I enter an environment where an IP address management system is being used, an IP address here are octets. There are 4 dotted numbers which allow you to identify a device on a network. So if I enter that environment and these numbers are being collected, and there is a way by which I can pick the number and identify a particular device, and from that device I can identify who uses it. If you look at the laws of privacy, the fact that those attributes can help us identify a person uniquely brings the question of how are we going to secure that information? And that is where the alignment comes in, the risk, so long as data can be identified.
this month. So let me play the devil's advocate here, right? And this question is going to come to all of you. I've heard a lot about balance and all of that. I've heard about protecting crown jewels. You know, I've heard about protecting to compete. But in all of this, there is limited resource within an organization. So when it comes to all these issues that you're talking about. So now I'm going to start with you here. So you work for an organization, and I don't think you have an open-ended budget, right? In your sector, you have a limited budget. So usually, what do you end up choosing? Do you end up choosing one over the other? Because we've spoken about balance in terms of what we expect, but now I just want us to really drill down to what is really happening when you are taking these decisions. And let's be as honest as possible. Are we really getting that balance in when it comes to the budget and allocation of resources? Or we are only talking about the balance because we're talking about it here, but when it comes to money and where we are spending, we probably may choose one over the other. So now I'll start with you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Becky. Okay, so from my end, I'm definitely cybersecurity. I am not, I wouldn't lie. So I'm just more of cybersecurity. So let me just go from that angle. Okay, so with the budget, obviously we always say we have limited budgets and all that. But with my organization, we work with financial institutions, and we don't joke with regulations. And as Desmond was talking about competition and all that, you wouldn't want your name to be out there as you frequently always have a cyber breach or cyber threats here and there. So for us in my organization, we do have a balance. I would say we do have a balance, and we always have data protection embedded in most of our applications.
So let me cut you. If you say you have a balance, does it mean that if you have $1 million, you're giving 500,000 to data protection and then 500,000 to cybersecurity?
Okay. So we have two departments. Okay, so let me just come and break it down. We have cybersecurity as a department, and then we have information security, where we have data protection sitting in information security, and we do work hand in hand. Okay, so they have their budgets, we do have our budgets. But when it comes to implementation of applications, systems, and projects, we do come together and attain the same goal. So that is where I'm talking about the balance. We take it very serious when it comes to data protection.
Now, I'm not leaving you because you haven't answered my question. Who has more money? I'm looking.
Who has more money? I wouldn't know the figures. Let me just not talk about figures. I wouldn't know the figures, But to be fair, cybersecurity from my organization is bigger than InfoSec per staff and all that. So I would go on that line. We are bigger. Cybersecurity is bigger than InfoSec. So obviously our budgets will be bigger than theirs, but I wouldn't know the figures. But we do work hand in hand. I'm being honest.
Thank you. I just want to know the budget, because I think that a lot of the time when we talk about the balance, there's also some real issues here, which we are seeing with the budget, because eventually the budget plays out into the capabilities of one, subject area over the other. Obviously, if you have a bigger budget, it means that you are more capable of enabling certain things than the subject area that has a lesser budget. So even though we're all talking about, that's where I kept telling you guys, we're going to be digging, deeper based on what you're telling me. So yes.
I want to give an example. Sorry, I want to give an example of my balance.
Yes.
Okay, so there's this project, AIP, it's for classification of data. Okay, so it was a project from cybersecurity, but we had the data protection manager with InfoSec. So we had to bring the person on board and we had to roll it out together. Even though the budget was sitting with cybersecurity, we still had data protection officer joining us to do it together. So, I mean, that's a typical example of how we take data
I
protection.
think we'll come to working together, but I'm here,
sure.
I'm purely on the money.
On the money.
I just want to know where the money is. There may be some people who want to probably go join the profession, so they should, as they say, they should follow the money trail. So I just want to know where the money is.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So let me come to you, Hector. Balance. Yes, all of you have told me beautiful stories about balance. Is there really a balance when it comes to the budget and the monies we're voting for each of these issues? Hector, you're muted again.
So, like I was saying, sorry about that. Cybersecurity is expensive. That is putting in place security controls. Given an example, putting in place, implementing an IDS, that is a intrusion detection system to protect your perimeter network. One IDS box could cost you about £300,000. That's one, if you want to get the top of the range box from one of the top vendors. And that is really expensive. So just imagine you have about 4 or 5 data centers across the world or across the country. And you need to protect all those data centers. That is how much you need to invest into cybersecurity. And that is just one of the controls. When it comes to resource, cybersecurity, resource cost is very expensive. So one of the areas that is expensive is pen testing, the assurance bit. Some people are would charge as much as $300 a day just to test your system, just for a day. Some are charging more than that. So in a nutshell, cybersecurity, putting in place cybersecurity controls, putting in place a setup is very, very expensive. But then you need to look at, first you need to look at what you're trying to protect. So if you're a business, you are not collecting all the PII, you are not doing anything that would end up like with you ending up having a fine of maybe a GDPR fine of 4% of your annual return, like annual sort of like profit, then you do not need to splash out money on all those controls, which are so expensive. So what we say is, in terms of when we look at that in terms of risk management, you protect, you invest money to protect what you have, not just splashing in the money just to protect your environment. If you don't have crown jewels that are so expensive, you do not need to spend all the money on like cybersecurity. So from my part, I would say cybersecurity is expensive. When it comes to budgeting, how the budget goes, it all depends on management. So cybersecurity is still trying to get onto its feet. So many other companies still do not understand the concept of cybersecurity. They feel it's just an added piece. It's a bolt-on. So you go to a company, a bank, a service provider, and then their board doesn't even know what cybersecurity is. Their board doesn't know whether they have a cybersecurity policy or not. Their head of cybersecurity reports to the head of IT. That is a conflict of interest, because if you are sitting under the head of IT, who you should be telling to protect A, B, C, D. When it comes to budgeting, he could say, no, I overrule you. I don't think we want to protect A, B, C, D. I am in charge of the budget. the head of cybersecurity should be sitting somewhere else, having dotted lines to the board, having dotted lines to the CEO, having dotted lines to head of risk and all that. So that when it comes to compliance, when it comes to auditing, all of them, like there'll be independence. So in a nutshell, cybersecurity is expensive across board, but then it depends on how the money needs to be spread out across board. It depends on what the board or senior management has been fed with. If they know the impact of cybersecurity, if they know that losing 4% of your annual returns of your getting a GDPR fine is going to cost them their whole business, then they would want to put more effort and more money into cybersecurity than people are doing at the moment. Yeah.
That's quite interesting, because you are citing a data protection requirement and breach to data protection, and yet you are saying that we should vote more money for cybersecurity. That's quite an interesting take on it. Let me bring in Ridwan here. So you work in this area, right? You've heard from Na and Hector. They are saying that more money for cybersecurity, and then maybe they may take care of privacy, as and when they need them. So what do you say of all this? Because I think that really, when it comes to the sector, it boils down, the balancing issue is not just about talk, and it's not just about recognition of one over the other. It's also about our actions, So and for me, it's, as they say, your money goes where your heart is or your mouth is. I think it may be both. So if we're putting more money in cybersecurity because we're saying cybersecurity is expensive, what is really happening with the data protection as well?
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. So, I mean, coming from the point of view of someone who has supported organizations with compliance as well, implementing privacy program, I would also say privacy is expensive, and that's the truth. I mean, it's easy for you to just ignore the simple things and just take as much as you can take, hoard as much as you can take, do whatever it is you want to do with it, especially when there are no consequences, or when the supervisory authority, for example, it's not willing to do its job. So, but what I would say is, when people speak to balancing, it's always good to say, I mean, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not data protection or security. We need the two, right? We need the two to balance. One is to safeguard the personal data and the people that's going to be affected about the people, because some of these things have real life consequences. So, and to put it in context, it's also going to be very good to also make a distinction between what a data breach is and what a security incident is. So a data breach will literally trigger the reporting and the notification obligation on an institution. A security incident might not, because a security incident that doesn't affect personal data itself does not trigger the responsibility to the obligation to notify or to report to the data protection authority. So if what you have is a security incident, like Nurudin said, it might probably just go to the baseline, but it's not affecting people. But when it affects people, it affects not just their right to data protection or privacy, it could affect so many other rights. And I'll put this in context. An situation where we could have two. So sometimes last month, a German hospital suffered a ransomware attack, which literally meant the hospital couldn't access patient data, and that meant people dying. So that's situations where you can actually have this and having real life impact on people. And when it gets to that extent, it's not about, I mean, at that point, we're not even talking about what are you securing? Is it data protection? Yeah. Is it security? It's like people, I mean, someone is actually dying for not doing the barest minimum. So for me, it's not a zero-sum game. We can always have the two. And for me, it's always been very, very important to have the two. And doing the barest minimum, again, it's sometimes simple, because first thing is, whatever privacy measure or data protection measure or security measure you're putting in place has to be relative to the risk that exists in your environment. So first, you need to understand your risk. If you don't understand your risk, you'll literally be, I mean, you can't over-secure or under-secure. It's a problem. There's a Chinese adage that says something like, too much of good thing is bad. So you can't take...
Can you say it in Mandarin then?
Uchi be fun. I think it's something along that line. Uchi be fun. I can't remember very well. So, I mean, it's like, I mean, mosquito. I have a mosquito problem now. I'm being bitten by a mosquito, or maybe I'm sitting in an environment where mosquito is bite. I'm being bitten by a mosquito. Then I take a gun to that fight. That's over security. So whatever security measure you're deploying, or whatever data protection measure you're deploying, has to be relative to the kind of risk that exists in the environment. But first, you need to know your risk. So that will also determine what you're allocating to one, what you're allocating to another. And I'll give us another example. So there's a research we're doing recently, which is looking at the lending tech. I mean, I don't know how much of it you have in Ghana, but it's something really big in Nigeria, and it's also big in Kenya. All these quick loan lending platforms that sort of give people all this quick funding. In 5 minutes, in 2 minutes, you can get a loan. So what we found out, we took some of these apps, we analyzed them against some established principles of data protection, some other metrics, and we also took it apart, analyzing the security. And what we found out was it's actually a complete mess. So because you want to do business, you literally ignore everything that has to do with data protection. Then you go ahead to also ignore security. Like, we literally saw apps that were running on non-secure protocol. We literally saw apps that were not only unsecured, they were running on unencrypted channels. We saw apps that had excessive permissions. I mean, apps that could actually listen to your audio, they could actually listen to your calls, they could read your SMS, they could read your email, they could do so many horrible things. Then we have apps that are like, have so many trackers embedded in them. And there's so much third-party data sharing. So in that kind of context, what we're seeing is completely ignoring these two concepts just because you want to do business. But the truth is, again, you can have the two, but first is understand the risks that confront you, or understand the risks that exist in your environment, so you're able to deploy what is sufficient in your own context. But again, it's not a zero-sum game. We should have the two. They're both expensive. And the truth is, I'm not a big fan of using compliance as a metric to force people to do the right thing. Just like Desmond said himself, I'm a big fan of ethics. First, let's do the right thing. When we go on to do the right thing, let's not thinking about being a good corporate citizen. Let's not thinking about reputation. Let's not thinking about global competitive advantage. And the interesting thing about competition is exactly because in that kind of society, we live in a rumor mongering society, where I tell you, Techie, please, this bank has suffered data breach, don't tell anybody. Then Techie, you go and tell, they say, they don't say I should not tell anybody, but this something is happening. Then before you know, whoosh. And I'm going to tell you this. 2 months ago, there are 2 commercial banks in Nigeria that was reported to have suffered a data breach, quote unquote. No one ever admits they suffered a data breach. And online already, you saw the reaction. People are already saying, I'm going to withdraw my money. That's the kind of reaction you get. You don't want that kind of thing. So think about it that way rather than just compliance and box ticking. So again, on the final note, I'll close it this way. It's not a zero-sum game. We need the two to be able to achieve that optimal level of...
You've given me the ideal. What is happening on the ground? Are you getting paid to do data protection work, or you're hearing that the budget is, we don't have a budget? I know it's expensive, but yeah, what is happening?
So I'm going to tell you this. Absolutely. I get paid. We get paid for doing this. So, we go in, we do like some sort of an appraisal first. So first is we do like a mapping exercise. So let's even understand the kind of data that you have in your environment. So after the mapping exercise, we go on to say, okay, let's do like some sort of an audit and an assessment. So after the audit, we see, okay, this is where they are doing well, this is where they are not doing well. These are the things I need to do. Okay, like, guys, we need to fix all of this. Are you able to afford it? And they go like, oh, the management, we have okay, fine. If what you can afford is just the shirts, you don't need the trousers, then you're only going to wear a shirt. Because I'm not going to stretch myself but we've had organizations, we work with organizations in different sectors, especially the health tech space. And they took this very serious. We are currently implementing the ISO 2701. And currently we've done the privacy bits, which is looking at process, looking at procedures, looking at policies. And also they're also deploying other technical measures to ensure some of the things they are doing is also privacy preserving. So on a scale of 1 to 10, from the kind of people who've actually provided services to, I'm going to be honest with you, 3 out of 10 are willing to go as far as the road stretch. 4 out of 10 are going to give you the story of management not willing and able. Then 2 will just tell you, we just want to comply. And you know what it is when people say they just want to tick the box. It's annoying even working with an organization who's like, there's so much risk that exists here. I mean, what I can see here is really dangerous. What you need is just, even one of your employee, just send something as simple as an email that is meant to be sent on the BCC, send it via CC. And that's a data breach enough to trigger a notification. So it's something that could be as simple as that. But these are risks that exist in the environment. But if you don't take it serious, then over to you then. So that, well, I mean, that's it from the real.
So what I'm hearing is that the budget, you're not getting, you know, an open-ended check where you can put all the figures in, you know. Yeah, Nuruddin, let me come to you. Welcome, Albert. I'll come to you shortly so that you can introduce yourself. I can see you were enjoying the beach so much that you forgot you had to join us earlier.
No.
So welcome and enjoy the breeze for us. I can see how the waves are popping in behind you. It looks very good. So enjoy your beach.
In fact, I'm already in the weekend mood.
I'll get back to you soon so that you can do a quick intro. Nuruddin, so on all this, right? So we are hearing budgets. We're trying to find, is there a balance in the budget? You know, if we're talking about a balance, really, when you're looking at the scale of the financing, is data protection, do you think data protection is getting enough? Or is getting the same as cybersecurity? And why do you think this discrepancy exists? Nuruddin, I'm on you.
Okay.
You're mute.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, better now. So I always love analogies, right? And also giving examples. You know, there's this meme that was online then. I mean, I think we still find it online, where you find out, it shows people sitting at a table, right? CXOs, CMOs, CEOs, CFOs. And one of them is standing by a smaller table where you have kids and one adult sitting. The adult is actually a CISO, right? And you see them inviting, you can now come over to the big boys table. I mean, so that's where security is right now, right? Security is, to some extent, getting discussed on the board level. I mean, for example, if you take a look at the World Economic Forum, the top 10 risks in 2020 and even 2019, you would find that cybersecurity is listed there as part of the top 10 risks. So the mention is getting known, as in people are discussing cybersecurity, and once that happens, I mean, so also is the budget. In our side of the world today, right, data protection and privacy is still very nascent. It's still something new. So tend to think of it as the head of data protection and privacy still sitting at that toddler's table, because that's where it is right now, right? They are about to be. So there's still the thinking being going on right now to see, should we invite them over to the big boys table? That has not happened yet. So also is their budget, right, for data protection and privacy. But what typically happens in organization, I can speak for my organization, is there's a whole lot of leverage on privacy and data protection on the security budget, right? So when it comes to things around security controls, data protection and privacy leverages on the security budget. I mean, for all your technical security controls and all that. So it's sort of the same budget. It's not separate budgets. But there are some other things that you don't need specific financial resources for, that all you need for those things are human resource and operational resource, right? Which is where data protection and privacy sort of extends beyond just sitting and looking for money or spending money. When it comes to engaging the guys in legal for your third-party contract to ensure that privacy clauses are embedded, you don't need any money for that. When it comes to doing a PIA, a privacy impact assessment for every project which you need to onboard, or for every new technology which you need to onboard, you don't need a technology for that. It could be a manual process. when it comes to you having your contractual clauses, whether it's your BCRs and any other contractual clause, you don't need money for that. When it comes to, what else have I left out? Your DSAR, for example, your subject access request, you can still sort of do it manually until you get the technology
If
to help
you
you.
say you don't need money for it, I'm assuming then that the organization has some skill set within that is being, but how are you paying this person? Is this a well-trained person? Because I know they can be very expensive. As Ridwan says, it's very expensive, you know.
Definitely. So what you need to now spend money on is really around ensuring that you have the right capability and capacity, especially for the resource. There are a whole number of things today that we do in data protection and privacy that are not even done by the DPO. They are done from people in legal, they are done from people in supply chain, they are done for people in maybe technology, governance, risk. All those things are where you now need to. So for example, in my organization, everyone got trained on data protection, but we also had specialized training for people in various departments that are main champions when it comes to privacy and data protection. And that has actually gone a long way in helping us to embed data protection and privacy within the organization. For those other things that actually require technological spend, I mean, it's the same budget for technology, for security, for example. So we just embed everything into security budget. I mean, so that's the way I feel like you could have, like Ridwan had said, it's not a zero-sum game. It's a win-win. Rather than have to disparate budget for data protection and privacy and security separately, what I would advise is, you know, why don't you just combine this? Because at the end of the day, even security and data protection would not exist if there's no business. The reason why data protection and privacy today is because there is a business. There's an organization which we are trying to protect, or there's an organization we are trying to ensure that they comply to data protection regulation. Without that, so we shouldn't put that as priority over the business. We will get whatever it is which we get, which we need to prioritize based on our risk assessment and ensure that we make meaningful spend from whatever budget we get from the business.
Okay, thank you, Nuruddin. Amanda, I saw you nodding a lot. You may come in from more from the privacy and the data protection space, right? Do you think that businesses and organizations are allocating enough balance to equally match? I'm saying this because we're talking about a balance here, right? And if you're saying a balance, then it means there's a scale and they all weigh the same. So can we say that is really happening in the space when it comes to budgeting for these two subject areas?
Short answer, no. I wouldn't say they are. Business is. But interestingly enough, South Africa's data protection law stipulates that personal data is also organizational data. So data that belongs to a company is also classified as personal data. So that's something that's actually quite different from a lot of countries. So I will give you an example. About 2 months ago, South Africa had a data breach from one of the largest credit bureaus, right? So this credit bureau currently holds data from some of the largest banks, like the big 5 banks in the country, and a number of other financial institutions in the country. So what happens now is you not only have a breach of individuals' data, but you also have a breach of organizational data, which is all personal data in the country. But weirdly enough, our data protection law is not yet fully in effect. It is in effect, but we've got 12 months to sort out your messes between now and next July. So what happened in this particular instance is someone contacts the credit bureau and they said, hey, listen, I'm calling you from this and this organization, who's your client, and I need access to these and these documentations. And they got that information. Turns out this person actually didn't have authority. They're not even from that company. But as Nuruddin was trying to explain, it's quite interesting, but as Nuruddin was trying to explain, when companies trying to budget for data protection, they also are required to make sure that each and every staff member is trained to be able to deal with such instances, because it feels very simple enough that, hey, listen, do a check, a background check, make sure this person is who they say they are, make sure you're sending this data to the correct people, make sure they've got authorization. So it's simple things, and we already have someone maybe at the reception desk or at so-and-so desk who's already being paid by the company. So technically the company doesn't have to spend extra for data protection, and most companies don't spend extra for data protection. You get a training, and that's that. As Ridwan has said, when you go in, you do the impact assessment, you do train as part of it, you make sure all the staff members are trained, they understand what is data protection, so on and so forth. You've highlighted all those little risks, like the front desk, don't leave files on the front desk, simple things. But when you do the balance of the amount of money that goes in, less definitely goes in for data protection. You do bring in someone, but what you're going to spend on that particular consultant is less. And I think Ridwan was right in saying some of the experiences I've had is companies would just say, hey, don't you just have a simple checkbox? Let's just tick X box and that box. We've done this, we've done that, so we have this. But my response is always, we need to be thorough. We need to make sure, this is where you're going right or wrong. And you will find that companies really don't want to do that. For now in South Africa, there is a bit of a shift because of the data protection law coming into effect as of July. You've got people, companies scrounging around a little bit, trying to put in more money for that. And the data protection law requires that you hire a specific data protection officer, a DPO, that is going to sit in the company, or they can be outside, but they have to be independent from the company. So that is also where now costs are going. So you might add a little bit of money to that. But I still do think organizations are not spending enough on data protection. And I do think it's not quite balanced. I don't know if it's fair enough to say it should be, if you have $1 million for your budget, it should be $500,000. But I do think more effort could go, from a resources perspective.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Desmond, I'm going to come to you before I go to Albert. So we're just hearing about, the fact that clearly there's not enough resources, financial resources being allocated to data protection, even though we all recognize here that it's equally important as cybersecurity. But is this not the case of, okay, this is just a new area that is coming up? And I very well remember back in the day, IT and IT security, possibly, because I used to hear from a few of the IT security guys how they were never given a budget until they got to, based on Nuruddin, they got to the big boys table. So is it not an issue of data protection is waiting its turn to be invited to the table? Or, so that it grows, it has to grow and then get teeth where it can bite and be invited to go and choose the big boys meat. Is that not what is happening here? And how do we fast track the growth of this entity so that, we can get a fair balance when it comes to our budget?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. The problem indeed has to be with whether privacy has gotten into the boardroom yet. So the issue has always been that security did not even get to the boardroom until recent times. I mean, in Ghana, it was 2018 when we saw in the Cyber and Information Security directives from the Bank of Ghana that a CISO was supposed to be more like part of the board. So back in the day, IT itself was like a workshop. And I have a funny experience with that. Sometime in 2008, I had to work with the mines and I was implementing security at the time. And so we had a few lapses and we needed the finance guys to double up so that we could acquire some solutions and begin the implementation. And through the back and forth, the IT manager was told that he's not a core part of the operation. In fact, operations is at the mines. The people who were actually at the leach. It sounded a bit disheartening, but that was the reality. And guess what? The project we were doing has to do with a platform called Historian. So if you work within the mines before, you work on their technology, you know that Historian actually controls the leach. So if that platform goes down, the so-called operations goes down. It's like the whole mine's grind to a halt because Historian is down. And that's the problem we have. Yeah, they've tried to separate operations from, you know, the digital space. And until recently, like I said, if it's a bank, or ours is to collect the money, but they fail to see that they are using certain mediums to collect the money. Now you have the same problem with data protection. Companies are working around data. Banks, if a regulator should ask you to stop processing personal data, you have no business. Your customers that you work with them because of personal data. But yet you're going to have the challenge as to where data protection fits. And you can get statements like, well, 99% of our customers don't care about this. The problem here is the 1% will care. And when the 1% cares, that is when your problems begins. That is when the regulator finds the 4 million, the 4 million euros or $4 million comes in. So it's true. What my colleague panelists have said, I mean, it's entirely true. The problem we have is the conversation hasn't gotten there. So you have very few organizations that have positions like Chief Privacy Officer, who sits at the C-suite and makes determinations on global cybersecurity issues, global data privacy issues, and looking at the impact of privacy on the bottom line. If things go bad, how much is it going to cost us? And then based on that, they are getting the relevant budgets. But we haven't gotten there yet. I mean, I just got off a project call. We are implementing a cybersecurity solution. This platform is collecting some amount of information, staff information. And somebody just asked me on the side, so as a privacy person, what are we doing? What's happening? How do we address the privacy of, you know, information that's being collected about the staff? Because you're going to have more than 100 staff integrating and working on that platform. I was intrigued. Somebody asked, probably because they knew I was also in data protection and I've been bothering them with it. But that is where the question of the alignment comes in. The balance is not there. I don't even want us to have that conversation and tilt towards Hector's. Hector's cybersecurity is expensive. You're not supposed to think only on the technical controls. Look, privacy indeed is expensive. If you're developing a strategic plan, you need a strategic plan for cybersecurity. I've seen a lot of, in fact, I've been part of developing of a strategic plan for a bank. They have never asked for a strategic plan for privacy. But when you do the alignment, the privacy program is just like your cybersecurity program. So when you are developing strategy for cybersecurity, it's going to also cost you to develop strategy for data privacy. You know, so there is cost in every line. The staff training, it will cost you to train them for cybersecurity. It will also cost you to train your staff for data privacy. There are platforms you need to buy to do continuous improvement in security. There are platforms you need to buy to do continuous improvement in data privacy. If you do a proper cost analysis, you would see that every single line on the value chain for cybersecurity, there is an equivalent cost for data privacy, including staffing, you know. But like we started off with the initial conversation, that for us, cybersecurity will find its way into privacy. But if the alignment is properly done, you are not going to find yourself in a position where you feel, okay, I've spent so much on security, why do I need to spend another bunch on data privacy? It's because you haven't started from the ground up. Nobody has been able to do the analysis to tell the business that if this happens, this is how much it's going to affect the bottom line. Albert is on the call. I'm sure he'll be able to talk about, you know, return on security investments. Risk is being asked to do analysis such that they can make justification for how much a company is putting into security. So the conversation has even moved from return on investment, where all the budgets are put together, and then IT said that, oh, well, we spent $1 million and this. No, today you have to bring the analysis strictly on security. We spent $100,000. What did we get in return? what could have been the worst if we didn't buy those controls that we implemented? And if the worst happened, how much would that have cost us? The question is, and this is a panelist asking other panelists questions. The question is, how many of us have been asked, what is the bottom line for data privacy? I mean, I've been working for 15 years. 5 years of it is active data protection, back to back. Nobody has even asked, can you help me do a business impact analysis when it comes to data breaches? You know, and the triggering of notifications and breach notifications, and how incident response is going to come in, because incident response itself is expensive, the cost on reputation, etc. So this has not been done. So at the board level, we are still sort of drinking tea. I mean, I'm saying this in quotes, come on.
Okay.
You know, so we need to get to the point where privacy gets the appropriate recognition and then the appropriate budgeting.
Okay, thank you. So you're not at the, privacy is not at the big boys table yet.
Not
Albert,
from where I sit.
Albert, do a quick introduction of yourself. Since you came in late, I don't know whether you were enjoying the breeze on the beach so much that you forgot about us, but do a quick introduction and then just launch yourself into this whole conversation. You work in an organization, and from where you sit, is there a balance in financing both areas?
So can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, great. So, sorry. So my name is Albert Seshi. I consider myself an information security professional. I do privacy as well, and then I train. I love training. In fact, I was actually training someone, so that's how come I was late into this session. So I've been itching to comment on a number of things. I don't even know where to start from Nuruddin's point. And in my experience, I think those days when you talked about requiring more resources in the technology space and management wouldn't listen, you actually cause something to break down, like cause the exchange server to go down. And then they will know the value of emails to you, cause maybe the backup system to go down, something. And then, oh, okay, bring, how much is it? And then they get it approved. Maybe the faster way of getting privacy to the big boys table is to cause some breaches. Let's deface some websites. Let's get some data into the wrong
I was not on this call.
You know,
you want to break people's legs. You're not advocating bad behavior by the fireside.
I was not on this call.
From an ethical hacker's point of view, we actually don't like privacy. When you secure everything, what do we hunt for? I mean, we need information to monetize, you know, and then be able to actually blackmail a few people or cause people fear and panic, or at the end of the day, maybe prove a point, depending on the motive you have to ethically hack it. But for me, I believe it's about time that we start pulling some of these strings, because today, in my opinion, there's no aspect of security today that you can talk about that doesn't have an element of privacy in there. In any case, what's the primary focus for information security, as we all experts know? It's not the protection of systems. It's not the protection of processes. It's primarily people. And what is people about? What are we all about? Names, phone numbers, email addresses, reputation, certifications, etc. All those things identify us in one way or the other. That is privacy. That is personal information, one way or the other. So whether the budget is there or not, if we are talking cybersecurity, we are talking information security, we need to talk privacy. For whatever it's worth, I mean, the international bodies are finding ways of incorporating privacy into security programs. Why? Because it is that relevant. It is important. It's more like Siamese twins. You can't talk about privacy, security, and not talk about privacy. Because at the end of the day, when you're securing all that system, all those information, all those platforms, what do they carry that is valuable? Why don't we want those things out there? It's because they contain information that easily identifies people, statuses, reputation, financial standings, etc., etc. So the balance is not there. In fact, Nuruddin, we are not even in the meeting room to be considered to the bigger table. We are actually at the door knocking. And the only way we can actually get the knock louder is where by the time the door gets broken down, you are holding people's mobile phones or something personal to them. And then they'll go like, huh? How did this happen? That is what privacy is all about. Maybe personally, I think it's about time. Seriously. So that's my take on
Thank you, Albert. I like that. So the
Firebrand
data
approach.
protection is not even at the door. Huh? It's just at the door. It's not even in the room to be invited there. But what are you doing there? You're sneaking in on people or trying to listen to what's happening in the boardroom, sitting at the door.
You know, matter of fact, the boardroom, they've actually left all those windows, everything open, and not realizing that somebody is actually standing.
So you are listening to them, eh?
So you are eavesdropping.
Exactly. You see, that is practically what is happening. We are putting in the controls to prevent people from maybe accessing a system, but we are actually, upon coming on board, we say actually consent to the fact that we are going to take this from you, and you just say yes. No physical intervention. You know, so
this is getting interesting, but we've already spent 1.5 hours, you know, even though it's been so short, and there's still a lot to talk about, because I haven't even asked about human resource. We just touched on finances. But before I come to that, I just want to let our attendees, our audience, either on Facebook Live or those on Zoom, if you want to ask a question, I've seen that none of you have typed. You can type your question in. We'll try and respond to it. Or you can raise your hands, and then we will elevate you to either ask your question or put in your comment. Roland, are there any comments or questions from Facebook Live? Whilst Roland is getting ready for us, Desmond, do you want to elevate Roland so that he can tell us if there are what is happening on Facebook? Okay, I see 2 hands up. Okay, so Alex, Desmond, do you want to elevate Alex? And then Roland, tell us what's happening on Facebook.
Hello?
Yes, hi, Roland, can you hear us?
Okay, so currently we have no questions on Facebook now.
Okay, all right.
No questions on Facebook.
No problem. Desmond, I think Alex, can you elevate Alex so that he can ask his question? He's raised his hand. Hi, Alex. Welcome, Alex. Can we see your face?
Oh boy.
Or yours?
No,
make sure you're well dressed. If not, please keep the camera off.
I don't think I have ability to put on my camera, so
that is good. It's okay. Just ask your question, please.
Okay, so my question is very simple. Is it possible that perhaps maybe we are not getting a seat at the table because we are not perhaps showing the value of all the things we are talking about to the powers that be? We only go to them and keep asking for funding. Is it possible we can change the approach? Would that help in a way?
Are you advocating Albert's position that you go and break their legs?
No. I'm not saying I'm not saying cause any outages or anything. But one thing I have realized is it looks like most of these hard decisions are really not really technical. It comes down to relationships, forging relationships, and trying to put across some value that you think you are bringing to the table that will cause people to want to sort of listen to you. So question is, do you think this strategy may help? I'm asking. I don't know.
I will start with Amanda. He's saying that you people are not making enough noise. You're not making, data protection is not making itself heard, and we're not, they're not making themselves relevant enough. What do you think? Is it true? And what do you think we need to do to be at the table?
I think we're making a lot of noise. We're definitely making a lot of noise. I don't know if you've watched the Social Dilemma on Netflix. That is just basically telling tech companies that, listen, you're using our data and these are the impacts of you using our data on us. I think the biggest reason why we are, quote unquote, not getting a seat at the table is because there's money in data. If we start protecting data the way we need to protect data and to be able to protect people's right to privacy, then it becomes very difficult for tech companies and companies that use this personal data to be able to monetize that personal data or to be able to gain some form of competitive edge or value from the data. So it is easy for the current data protection laws to just say, an individual needs to consent to you using the data and you give this person a privacy policy. That is essentially all they need to do. They've checked the box and that is okay. But the moment you start requiring more from these companies that are using data, then it becomes a problem, because then their return on investment will not be, will not meet the bottom line at the end of the day.
One, is that really the case? I want you to react to Alex's question and comment at the same time. Yeah.
I mean, I think we're probably going to be like, we need to be like a very good student of history. So maybe take a note from how security became a thing. And I think part of what they did was not just to refine it, is also making a business case. If we do this, this is what we stand to gain. If we don't do this, this is what we stand to lose. So I think beyond storifying it, bringing it into graphical, because what the board understands is always going to be the dollar, the CD, or the naira. So when we put it, under privacy management, there's a thing we call metrics, because one thing is using metrics to measure the impact of the privacy program you've implemented. Another thing is also using metrics to also make a business case for why it's important for you to implement a privacy program. So when we use these metrics, when we show what the numbers are, we'll break it down into the numbers. We'll make it very graphical to understand, okay, these are some of the things that we stand to lose. If we don't do this, this is what we stand to lose. I think it starts resonating with them as well that, okay, if we need to continue to do business, we might as well need to go to this way, because if we don't, this might also be the end of us. So, I mean, I don't agree with Albert's firebrand approach. We don't need to tear down the entire, we don't need to tear down the entire building, but I think we can build alliance, have some sort of an ally in the boardroom, for example, who is speaking who is on your side as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and it's going to be a marathon. But I think we can literally just take the script from what security has been able to do to get to the big boys table as well. Storify it, make it graphical, make a valid business case, turn it into numbers. Because when they turn into numbers, it becomes something very feasible for them, or very something realizable for them. So those are that's like the model I will propose. Don't let us tear it down, please.
That's quite interesting. But as you were talking, I started thinking about something. Globally, until GDPR happened, until the fines really went crazy, nobody was really talking about data protection. And even our countries in Africa don't even have data protection laws. Everybody woke up, and somehow it brought the issues to the table. So is this also an issue of, even though, from the beginning, we've spoken about how it is a business enabler, is this also an issue where we have to say that maybe our laws are not pushing the data protection issues to the table? But if you want to look at it from that perspective as well, the question is, with cybersecurity, I think you guys still go to the boardroom even without necessarily the laws. having been, you never really got to the table with the kind of laws that we have. Even though the laws have had an impact, I don't think that is what really pushed you to the table. What pushed is that there were negative impacts on businesses that really got you, the Albert approach. Their legs were broken more or less. And so they had to fix it. And in order to fix it, they need to get, IT the right place so that they can fix their problems. So is that not what this issue is? How do we really get this? I don't like to use the word balance. I like to say synergy, because in all of these, everything, all the issues come at play at different points in time. And there's always one thing that will take priority over the other. But how do we make sure that at any point in time, each of these subject areas are getting the right attention that is needed, so that one is not losing out just because it's not at the table? Now I'm coming to you with all these long comments, but where does all this stand? How do we build that, conversation around the table? How do we get in?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would side with Albert. Yes, I mean, I'm still biased. I was security biased, so never mind. I'm not breaking any legs, though. I don't have the hand. But for me, I see the cybersecurity practice. I mean, the end goal is to protect data. That's from my point of view, because if you have a system, I don't know why you would protect the system if there isn't any important data or there isn't any data sitting on the system. So for me, for my organization, I think we already work hand in hand. I don't know about other places, but from where I sit, I see it to be more, I mean, that's the end goal. We protect our systems because of the personal data of our customers. That is how I see from where I sit. And it's already, I'm now trying to understand various concepts from various organizations where it doesn't work that way. But from my end, I mean, we see it. I don't know if it's because of the regulations that we need to go by, the Cybersecurity Directive from, let's say, BOG. You wouldn't want to go pay fines and all that. So for me, we do work hand in hand. I mean, and for cybersecurity, the practice, the end goal is data protection. We are protecting the data that sits on the system.
Okay, so Hector, a quick reaction to Alex's question. You are on mute.
So thank you. So there are two things. First, I think the organization has to make sure that they do have their policies, standards, and guidelines in place when it comes to either privacy or cybersecurity. That is the first thing. And those policies should be based around what the company's objectives are. And this should be agreed in the boardroom. This should be accepted by the board, accepted by the CEO. Somebody should be championing it. In my organization, when it comes to cybersecurity, the global CTO is the sponsor. He takes joy in wanting to hear that the business is secure every day, not only like in the protection of customer data, but also in the protection of our systems. Because if our systems go down, even systems that do not have customer data on there, if they go down, that will mean that we have millions of customers not having network service to make calls. And that will be detrimental to country. So let's take the UK. The company powers a lot of areas, public sector areas. The company powers the airport, powers hospitals. So if our networks go down, then we could lose lives. We could lose so much. So a denial of service, that will be detrimental to us. And then I think the second point is also making sure that there are country laws or regional laws. So let's take GDPR. GDPR, like you said, before it came, companies were trying to do things right. But then when it came, and then people saw that there's a 2% fine of your annual revenue. That is huge. So if you're a company, you're making 40 million a year, 2% of that money is going to go to, and you are breached, 2% of that money is going to what? ICO. And in Europe, most companies will not like that to happen. So I think these two things need to be agreed upon, need to be settled. First, internal policies, and then guidelines, and then standards, and then also the country-specific or regional-specific laws. In like Desmond said, wanting to, there would always be, I will always be biased, because I would always want to look at protecting my
systems.
Yes, the systems, and then the data sitting on top of it. Because when you look into our data classification and protection policy, we classify assets as data and then the systems that the data reside on. Because in terms of the service that we provide as a service provider, there are two things that happen. If that data is breached, we are in trouble. If the systems go down and then there's a denial of service, customers do not get service, we are in trouble, we will be fined. Almost the same as the fines for GDPR, because you've denied customers, and then apart from customers, enterprise, or whether enterprise or consumers, you deny them service, which might be detrimental to somebody's life or lives.
But also, even if you, let me play the devil's advocate here, even if you protect your systems, but you process information contrary to the law, you are also fined. So really, when we are talking about the alignment here, where, because there's, I think you've all highlighted it, there's some data protection is not, from what we have heard from you, is not cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is not data protection. So really, when it comes to the alignment, the question, I'm coming back to the questions we've asked ourselves, how do we do the alignment in that case? Because this is a clear situation where you're protecting your systems, but you are processing information contrary to data protection requirements. So how do you do the alignment?
So for me, I'll take it by product by product basis. So if I have to assess a product, and then after the privacy impact assessment, my privacy colleague tells me there is no PII on here. There's no employee data going to a third party. There's no strategic data going to a third party or being saved anywhere. It's just a normal system that has not processed any of this data. In myself, I sort of I'm very, very happy, because now I know that in terms of the design stage, I don't need to tell the product architect or the product designer to embed all these security requirements in there. I'm more happy when the product team comes together and says, this, everything is not even within our environment. It's more like a third party. There's no processing of customer data and all that. That now makes me feel okay, a bit good. But then when the product now has customer data, it's within our data centers, we are integrating with an external let's say an external vendor. We have so much data mix that we need to protect. Then my red flags start going. That means that now, in terms of the design of the product, I need to now start thinking about what are the controls, whether it's technical or process.
Okay.
So whilst we're talking, I think we've not mentioned the type of controls we put in place. Even in cybersecurity, we need to put in process controls, paper controls, apart from the technical controls. So for example, when I say paper controls, I'll be referring to when it comes to operations, when the service is in operation, who within the cybersecurity environment is responsible for operational security? Who is responsible? Is it the guys, the cybersecurity guy who did assessment during the design stage, or there is a dedicated team which looks at the product when it's in operation? So all the risks that have been raised in the risk register, that person makes sure that from time to time, they go to a product team and ask them, have you fixed the risk? Have you fixed it? Have you fixed it? Why is it still sitting there? So all these points sort of come together. By that time, the privacy guy or the privacy colleague would have done all his work, but then his work is still not finished because there will still be updates to the project or the product. Things could change. There could be more data added. There could be data removed. So for me, from the idea stage, both teams do not finish their work until the service is decommissioned. Even when the service is decommissioned, it's about to be decommissioned.
So,
I need to sit down.
Clearly, even though you have a bias, you are also highlighting how important the data protection person is towards the entire process. Albert, let me come back to you because our time is running. Yeah. Albert, you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
Exactly. So
let's just do a quick one, then I can get everybody through because I still have a few questions for all of you.
Very quick. So maybe I need to patent the Albert factor since everybody is referring to it, so I can make some money out of it. So there are two sides to every aspect of corporate governance, and rightly so. Alex was. I just wanted to touch on Alex's concern. So in terms of value, okay, let me just play the devil's advocate here. Let me just move from the privacy hat to the cybersecurity hat. Typically, when it comes to communicating value to the business, and I'll take from Redwan's as a session too, the board is all about the numbers, okay? So if I put myself in the cybersecurity shoe today, everything I keep on hearing about privacy is like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. To the board member, that is no money. So when you have to buy in that space into the boardroom and you look at privacy, you actually have value both from the customer or the consumer point of view and from the business point of view. If you can communicate directly to the business what it means for them to actually observe these concerns, you're definitely going to get that space or that seat on the boardroom. And it doesn't have to be the don'ts of what the law says they shouldn't do, but it actually should be what they stand to gain when they observe what the laws require them to do. And for me, that is one leg of communicating value and getting that seat within the board room.
Okay. So whilst you guys are looking at it, right, I made a few notes. So are we saying that you know, in aligning, because clearly these are two different subject areas, even though there's a reason from what you have said, that there's a way that both speak to each other, right? There are clear differences in there. Is it something that we would say here that aligning cybersecurity to data protection will start, and I'm picking this from what Hector had said earlier, would start from rightly identifying and classifying data that we are dealing with in the first place? Is that where the alignment will start from? I think that I'll move to you, Nuruddin, and then Ridwan can come in, and then Desmond as well.
So I think I agree with that. And that's the starting point, because at the end of the day, what we are all concerned about really is about the data, whether it's organizational data, whether it's personal data. So that's the starting point. Everything which you think about are basically mediums through which that data has been processed, whether it's the people, whether it's the technology, the infrastructure, the application. But the problem today really is people are so concerned around protecting the medium rather than the data, right? So for each of those mediums, for example, there are security solutions in place, for example, to protect the medium rather than the data. I mean, protecting data by itself is it's costly, which is why Hector mentioned things around encrypting the data. And encryption would only work for data that's at rest or data that is in transit. When that data is being processed, it doesn't make sense to encrypt the data because the data is actually in use. So that's the starting point. Trying to get hold of the data. What's your crown jewel? I think that's what Hector keeps saying. That's the most important bit. Understand the crown jewel. From your crown jewel, do you have personal data which you need to worry about? And if there are personal data which you would need to worry about, that is where data protection or privacy regulation comes into play. So that's the starting point, really. Once you're able to do that, that's when you now start doing your proper risk assessment. What are the risks that applies to this data? Let's not forget, if there's no risk, there's nothing to worry about, right? What risk management or risk assessment helps you do is to ensure that whatever budget it is which you get from top management, you are able to use that budget appropriately. What I mean by that really is you're able to clearly understand what your data is, what the threats and vulnerabilities to those data are, and you are able to ensure appropriate security to protect that data, or prefer appropriate security to protect the data, so that you're not overprotecting the data or you're not underprotecting that data. And a typical example is this. Say, I'm praying I have one. Say I have a Maserati today, right? Or maybe a Bentley. Hopefully, maybe someone would give me one from this call.
What is willing and capable.
Yes, tech is willing, yeah. What I'll typically do is to ensure that I don't leave that Maserati on the streets, right? I'll probably park it into my garage, put in a biometric. If I could afford a guard, I'll probably put the guard by the door and leave a guard dog. That won't apply to if I own a bicycle, for example, right? If I do that kind of control or protection to a bicycle, it doesn't make sense. That would mean I'm basically just spending.
But it depends on the value you place on the bicycle.
Exactly. Which is where that's also part of what you do as part of risk assessment. You understand the value of the assets, right? If it's not, so your control should be appropriate to the value of the asset. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And all those, you basically understand that from your risk assessment or your risk management. So I think that's the starting point. Determine what the data is. If it's personal data, it falls under the scope of data protection regulation. If it's not personal data, if it's online, it's cybersecurity you need to worry about. Just because it falls under the scope of data protection or privacy doesn't also mean you shouldn't worry about cybersecurity. Let's not forget, rule one is if it's online, cybersecurity. If it's personal data, it's data protection regulation. If it's number two and it's still online, go back to rule one, cybersecurity. I think that simplifies everything.
Ridwan, I'm coming to you now. So react to Alex's quickly, and then also, where do we start the alignment process?
Okay, yeah. So for me, much has been said already. For me, I'm a big fan of sort of even identifying first, like through a data mapping or scoping exercise. So of course, we can go on to now classify to whether it's the kind of appropriate security or what kind of security or controls we want to put in place to sort of safeguard the data in question. Well, again, Dina's put it out. the way it should be exactly. If it's online, and for me, I'll take it a step further. Even if it exists in the file, if it exists in the cabinet, then you start talking about physical security as well. Then, of course, even if it's in the file and it's in the cabinet, but it's in a structured way, then of course data protection will continue to apply as well. I mean, it's not just limited to personal data that exists in digital formats. So that's going to be one for me. And for me, I think the height of everything, synergy again, aside, the height of synergy again is always going to be we need each other. Again, you can have security without having data protection. It's very possible. If, for example, there's really no need business case for personal data in the first place, but you can have data protection without having security. So we really need each other. So I think it's more around, I mean, we have the CIS, so maybe an organization that's probably not appointed a data protection officer or an information regulator. I mean, I say information regulator, information officers, they have it in South Africa. Might also be thinking of, even if you don't have that yet, have someone in your board that is thinking of it, who you can also call your privacy champion, who is lending a voice to a business case for privacy. And for me, the height of everything is implement a privacy program, implement it in such a way that it becomes part of how people are thinking about their job. It becomes about how people are doing their job. So from the desk officer to even the guy at the gates receiving people, they're thinking about it. And for me, that's the ikigai. That's the ikigai for me. So we need ourselves, and we need to like work together. We need to foster that environment where we're not seeing each other as competitors. We're not coming for each other's jugular. It's not a rivalry. I mean, we're rather an ally to seeking the same thing. It's all about maximizing the value for data, and of course, making sure we safeguard the environment.
All right. Do we want to, Desmond, I'm coming to you for your comments. So Redwan is saying, look, let's align. Doesn't mean we have to tag, because look, the cybersecurity guys are on the board table. They're eating. Do we want to tag along them and then ask them to bring out a few of the kebab sticks for us? How do we do all of this? So where do we start this whole alignment process? You know, because clearly cybersecurity is at the table. And data protection, as you've all noted, needs to be there as well. Like Ridwan, would you say that we need to, you know, ask somebody to advocate for us, or how do we get there, you know?
I think security advocated for itself. And I say that I've been long in that space to know that security advocated for himself. As far back as 2005, people were even having problem buying antivirus, because I was a reseller then. they have problem.
You advocated by making sure that people didn't have service, right? You made sure you infested us with virus. So that's the Albert approach, right?
There was a natural environment of security incidents, because you see the industry will grow with itself. The black market for attackers grew, the market for researchers grew, the market for espionage grew. So the industry built itself up to a point where you could see that solutions were being developed, and being developed for who? For the very users who started off by not giving, you know, two cents about whether they need security or not, because of course it was not affecting the bottom line. So that takes me to my conversation. Privacy indeed will affect the bottom line. This whole conversation about aligning has to start with what the company deems to be a strategy when it comes to data protection. Strategy is discussed at the board level. It is the only place that you are going to get attention for budget. If we want to do data protection and do it well, we can't target to a department. I've seen it tagged to HR, because somebody thinks that, this is HR. I've seen it tagged to purely regulatory compliance, because they feel that, it's just a law. I think the conversation must go into the boardroom. And for it to go into the boardroom, it must be a strategic decision. How would it be a strategic decision? We need to find a business objective for it. So if we are processing information around personal data, then it definitely means that as part of the strategic decision, the strategic planning, we should be looking at the impact of personal data on our business. 90% of our business hovers around personal data, then you're likely to have 60% of your risk coming from personal data. You know, and if I go by Pareto, then 20% of that 60 has to be fixed, and that would cost money. So the strategic decision of the board, for which the board will be accountable for, must include the discussion of data protection. Then it shifts me to another major concern. I think sorry, I would wrap up. I think yes, I think both practitioners and even the corporates and the individuals have seen data privacy as a showstopper. When you mention data protection, the first thing that comes to people's mind, oh, you are coming to make us stop collecting data. We need to build a conversation that deals with, you can't collect the data, but this is how you are supposed to go about it. That is why things about anonymization and masking and all that comes into play. And then data classification lifts up from there. So I'll wrap up by saying we need to get the concept right. We need to put it into strategy before we will start discussing data classification and then build the controls on them.
Okay, thank you. There's a comment, I believe, on Facebook. So just permit me to comment and then a question, bring it in. Then I will bring you on, Amanda, and then we'll do a quick round. I think we started a bit late, so give me some 5-10 minutes so that we can really round up this conversation properly. The comment says is from Claudia Durkin. She says, great discussion. In Europe, there are some moves trying to make CEOs responsible for cyber breaches, and Gartner saying there will be more moves to make boards accountable by 2024. Is this also happening in the African market? And more important, what do your panel think about this? The moves to make CEOs more responsible for cyber breaches. So yeah, I think, Amanda, I will come to you and then we can all comment on that as part of our closing remarks as well, making CEOs more responsible. Where do we start the alignment in the first place? So Amanda, I'm going to start with you and you can rope everything in and then put in your final or concluding remarks. Then I can move to everyone.
Okay, so in South Africa's Data Protection Act, CEOs or whoever's heading the company, whoever's responsible, is it a board or whoever, at the end of the day is held accountable for data protection breaches. So they can be held personally liable. As Hector mentioned earlier, with the GDPR, you do have 2% fines. In the South African Data Protection Act, you do have fines as well. And in terms of those fines, if the company can't pay the fines, then the board or the CEOs get personally liable. So that also, we are trying to, I think, from the data protection side, we are trying to bring that in. In the case of South Africa, it's purely in the act form. It hasn't been tested because the act, as I've said, it's an old act, but it just came into effect. So I can't say, yes, that's how it's going to happen, or no, but the law is there. To round up, I think we need to get more people to understand why their personal data is important. I think the more people we have, when you get to a residential, a gated community, when the security personnel asks you for your license number, your car registration, all of those details, I think more people need to be saying, why do you need this why do you need this personal data? In that way, the more we want to keep our data to ourselves, or the more we want entities or companies to account to us how they use our data, how they protect our data, and so on and so forth, will at the end of the day also force the boards and the CEOs to start thinking about how do we protect this data, because the people want to know.
Thank you. So coming back to all of you, just react to the question that just came and then give us your concluding remarks on all of these. You all have just a minute. So Hector, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So Claudia was my first boss. So
okay.
Thanks for that question. Yeah. So I think her question or her comment is in the right step, as making CEOs and somebody in the board, a sponsor, a champion responsible for first data protection, as has been done for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, apart from the breaches that happen and all that, somebody needed to go into the boardroom and say, I want somebody to champion it here. This is what we can offer you. This is what cybersecurity is bringing on top of the table, even though we are not bringing in any money. And that's one of the challenges, or what we are accused of. Cybersecurity guys don't bring in any money into the business. They rather come and take out. So companies will not want to give you money, keep giving you money when there's no value. So, but I believe that in the African region, and then, mostly in the African region, I believe it will be good to start making CEOs and boards like responsible for such challenges, such breaches.
I think that is definitely a sure way of getting us in the boardroom, right?
Yes, that is so sure. And then also, I think in terms of the secure development life cycle, I believe privacy needs to be involved from the start. When they are involved from the start, by the design stage, they would find something that can be tangible, that will be presented to the board. So that might help in the discussion to bring privacy into the boardroom.
Well, let me take other concluding remarks, but as a comment to that, usually they are not even at the table when you're looking at that. You don't invite them. So how would they identify the issues to bring to the table? Well, but I think as a takeaway, it just says that we really need to bring them in, you know, at the very, 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 very beginning of the entire process. Albert, your concluding remarks.
I would still say
break a leg.
Not necessarily, but see, I would go with let them know the value. Okay, it shouldn't be, and communicate it to their advantage. Find a way of making it something they would benefit. Of course, everybody's in business to make something. So once that conversation sinks in and you start showing them some designs, even at the design level, you start letting them know the value you are actually putting into the product before it goes out there, or the service before it goes out there. You'll be you'll be surprised to know that they would even now invite you and say, hey, this thing is about to go, or we are thinking in this direction. What should we consider? What are the steps we should take to actually make it appealing, so that customers actually trust whatever product or service we are taking out there? And we'll be sure to be at the table, and then who knows, we might even have some people going out rather. We'll take some people.
Yeah, I thank you. So Albert is saying that let's make the data protection issues relevant to the business so that they will see the value case in it. I'm coming to Na.
Hi. Okay. For me, looking at where making the CEOs accountable, I would say for my organization, we are the CEO is very worried about KPIs, key performance indicators. So if you should make this as one of their key performance indicators, trust me, they would move heaven and earth to definitely ensure that we have privacy being talked during the board meeting. So for me, I mean, we can definitely start from there, and gradually we would have privacy in there. But cybersecurity do work hand in hand with data privacy. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you. Nuruddin?
Okay, so I don't know how to wrap this up. So I think it's an ongoing conversation. I have a feeling that we are still going to have this discussion maybe next year, and in 2 years' time, and in 3 years' time, and it is still going to be what it is. And I'll say why I mentioned that. So today, I think for most CEOs, some of them are actually concerned about privacy and data and security issues, mostly because that's what is being talked about from a global level. So if you take a look at the World Economic Forum, like I said, the top 10 risks in the World Economic Forum today, for 2019 and 2020. Cybersecurity or cyber risk tops one of the top 10 risks. If you take a look at any one of the reports from the big fours today, I'm not going to mention names, no adverts. Top 10 risk across any one of the big four reports. Cybersecurity also tops that. From 2007, I can check till date, you'll find cybersecurity being mentioned as part of each one of those issues. But to quickly wrap up, and I'll go the Albert way. I feel like for cybersecurity and privacy and data protection, for privacy to get to that level of where cybersecurity is today, more bad things have to happen. And by what I mean by more bad things have to happen is, if there's an internet outage, for example, if there's a DDoS attack, if there's a large data breach, right, that involves personal data, the next day, you'll find out that most organizations are talking about data protection and privacy the very next day at their board meeting. So I think that's where I'm going to sum it all up.
So I will come to you, Ridwan.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the CO liability and pretty much what we've seen in a couple of data protection laws in Africa, and that includes even the data protection bill in Nigeria. I think it's a fine model where we make people responsible. And also the interesting thing about the Nigerian law also is the fact that beyond just civil penalties, administrative sanctions, there's also the criminal sanction there. So which, I mean, imposes imprisonment term. So maybe to that extent, even though I'm not a big fan of the criminal dimension to it, but I think to that extent, it might be an interesting model to make people sit up. But beyond that, I think everyone needs to recognize their specialty in the business, I mean, across business function. The security person should understand security is your domain and not data protection, because they are completely different things. And no one should try to like overreach. Legal should know the knowledge of law is not automatically does not automatically translate into knowledge of data protection. So everyone should know their role and do their job. Let's build a very strong alliance, because we're trying to seek, we're looking at the same end. And I also feel on our hand too, as on our own path as practitioners, so I think we need to do more research, because often than not, all these big data breaches that we hear about never really manifest. People never really talk about it. They don't really report it until when there's a report or there's a research, then the vulnerabilities are actually disclosed. So I think we need to do more security research, more privacy vulnerability research. And of course, my final note is your privacy program, when you start it, is not successful until it becomes how people do their job. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So Desmond, last but not the least, you have a minute.
Okay, all right. So I would just say that when you look at the way the laws are even positioned, I mean, most of the laws on data protection, the obligation or the liability ultimately is on the data controller or the data processor, depending on which law you are looking at. Now, who is the data controller? Definitely the company or the organization processing the data. And the alter ego of these companies are the CEOs and the boards. So the liability that comes to the company automatically gets to you. I don't know why you would even pretend this has nothing to do with you until you read it in black and white in a legal text, you know. So I would advocate that we should take privacy as we would do with any business value, by assessing it and seeing what it brings to the table. And then based on that, we should do the proper strategic input and then align the appropriate budget. As to whether the two units, cybersecurity and data protection, can work, yes, they can, but everybody has to know the role that they are playing. I mean, just like Ridwan said. And then finally, I want to say that it's a very big ecosystem. There are auditors in there, there are assessors in there, there are lawyers in there, there are trainers in there, and it goes on and on. So it can't just be somebody's singular job to deliver, especially when it's a huge enterprise. And data protection is not a checkbox business, not at all. Thank you.
Right, so thank you very much to our eminent Wiz, as you like to, ADRH prefer to call you, for really breaking these issues down. Thank you very much, Albert, Hector, Nuruddin, Amanda, Ridwana, and Desmond for making it so worthwhile. Just give me a few more minutes to say a few things, then you can go and enjoy your Friday evening or Friday night alcohol. The Fireside chats, the ADRH Fireside chats will continue around the same time on the last day of every on the last Friday of every month. So we'll be continuing, but of course, it will be on broader topics that ADRH likes to focus on. Please do well to follow our social media pages for more information on our upcoming events. And for those of you who are attending or listening to us, I just want to use this opportunity to invite you to the very first Data Protection Africa Summit virtual edition. You can call it the COVID edition, and it's going to be very exciting. It will be next week, Thursday and Friday, and I can't wait to be a part of it. If you haven't registered just yet, please do well to book your seats. There will be a French version and an English version to make it accessible to all languages. We are indeed grateful to all our partners that have made this possible, especially to Information Security Architects, Digital Law House, and Tech Hive Advisory. We'll come to you again, I believe, in a month's time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good Friday evening. I think we can all wave to our audience and say bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Great time. Bye.
We're still live on Facebook. Do we want to go off now?
Okay, it's a wrap.
You are live on Facebook.
Okay.
You are live on Facebook.
Ah, yes.